Good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday, happy Wellness Wednesday, happy day after Valentine's Day, and let me see what else. Happy 50% off all the candy you could possibly want day. It is the day after Valentine's Day, and it is Wednesday, and if you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am an entrepreneur, I'm an activewear addict, a mom, a nana, a wellness advocate that believes that just sharing information between us can help people discover new ways to be well. What works for one person may or may not work for somebody else. So this is a great forum to do that. That's why I started Wellness Wednesday, so that we could share ideas. I share my experiences, things that have helped me work through severe anxiety and depression that I had for a good portion of my life. And a lot of it is mindset stuff. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's diet related, but most of the time what we're talking about is mindset. I love to learn. So if you have a topic that you would like to see covered on a Wellness Wednesday, you don't really know where to start as far as research is concerned, or just don't have the wherewithal to dig into it, I love to learn. So feel free to message me or drop a potential comment below, and I can look into that for a future Wellness Wednesday topic. My rules are no politics, no negativity. And the truth is that a lot of times if we're talking about anxiety or depression or something like that, good morning, Miss Erica, that it does seem like it's a negative topic. But in that case, what we're looking for is a positive approach to those things. So also, if you're new to my page, you may be wondering why I'm usually fresh from a workout. On Wednesday mornings, usually jazzercise. So let's dig in a little bit. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, which means that you were loving on everybody around you, grandkids, kids, your significant other more specifically. And we can have many, many conversations about whether this is a made-up holiday or not, which it probably was, but it still tends to have an impact on a lot of people, whether they have someone in their life or whether they are alone. So we've spent the whole day loving on everyone around us, right? But oftentimes we forget to love on ourselves, and that's extremely important. And that's why I want to talk about being your own Valentine today and every day. Just like I believe that Valentine's Day is just one day in 365 a year that we should be loving on everyone around us, we should also be loving on ourselves. So, according to the Berkeley Wellbeing Institute, when we don't love ourselves, we often feel more negative, self-focused emotions. And these have a direct impact on our self-confidence and our perceptions of our own self-worth. And that's a big problem, and usually the underlying problem when it comes to anxiety and depression. So the negative self-focused emotions that are most common in this case, and you can feel free to raise your hand if this identifies with you, or just kind of raise it in your head, totally up to you. But absolutely, if you're here, let me know you're here. And if you don't see this till afterwards, let me know you've seen it with a hashtag replay. Those negative self-focused emotions are inadequacy, shame, anger, driven to prove ourselves to others mostly, loneliness, guilt, rejection, and these feelings tend to all kind of go hand in hand. Some of them are very closely related, and they often bleed into our relationships, because when we are feeling these things, inadequacy, shame, anger, etc., guilt, we have a tendency to project those onto the people around us. When I was going through my divorce, one of the very first self-help books I read that was recommended to me by the counselor I was seeing at the time was called Happiness is a Choice. And having been the type of personality my entire life that, the people pleaser type personality where everything I did was to make somebody else happy or to make somebody else like me, because I had all of these things. I had all of these negative self-focused emotions. The hardest thing and the biggest light bulb for me from that book was learning that a lot of that was actually a very selfish, self-centered thought process. And that was very difficult for me because I never viewed myself as a selfish, self-centered person. But if somebody walked into my work, that is, if a coworker walked in and they didn't smile at me when they came in the door, I immediately thought something I had done was wrong. Yeah. And looking back, that's pretty self-centered, but that was a really hard pill to swallow. And because it's because that's what happens when we feel these feelings, when our self-esteem is down, when our self-worth is down, or non-existent, we have a tendency to be very turned inwards and very self-focused on what's wrong with us, that we feel inadequate, that we feel shame about something, anger about something, anger at somebody else for not treating us the way we feel we should be treated, or most often not treating us the way we treat them. So the loneliness, the guilt, the rejection, that's often where it comes from. And because it skews our perception, it bleeds into the relationships around us. We've all heard the saying that if somebody's guilty of doing something wrong, they tend to be more accusatory of the people around them. Same idea. If you're feeling rejected, you have a tendency to put up walls and reject others, even when they're trying to reach out. So it definitely erodes at the little bit or any, good morning, Miss Stacy, self-confidence or perceptions of self-worth that we have on ourselves. So how can we start to fix that? It is a very long process. It is not something that's going to happen overnight. But I found this really cool, it's called the Project Love blog, and it's self-love for beginners. And I thought it was a very, very good way to sum this up. So number one, and those of you that watch me every week, you know I'm going to go here every time because I truly believe, and I have learned over time in dealing with my anxiety and my depression and my own low self-esteem, that what you eat and what you do with your body is absolutely crucial to your mentality, your personality, and your emotions for a myriad of reasons. So nourish yourself. And what that means is when you are eating a cleaner diet, a more appropriate diet, less processed foods, less sugar, things like that, you are not just nourishing your body, but you are nourishing your whole brain, body, nervous system. High sugar, high carbohydrate, refined carbohydrate diets tend to cause spikes and crashes in your blood sugar, which directly affects, if you've ever been friends with somebody that's hypoglycemic, trust me, it directly affects your personality. I had a dear friend, still have a dear friend, we just don't talk as much anymore, who you knew she would be perfectly fine, and then you knew the minute it was time to get her some food because she just would change on a dime, and it was because her blood sugar was starting to tank. So what you eat truly does have an effect on your personality, your emotions, your mood. I know that when I have coffee, sometimes that elevates my anxiety, which means I'm extra edgy in the car when I'm driving, or especially if I'm riding with somebody else. If you actually start to pay attention to what you feel like when you're eating a cleaner, better diet versus what you feel like when you don't, you would be amazed at the differences in the two. If I'm eating too much crap, I have brain fog. I don't feel like I can think straight. I don't feel as motivated, and that has a direct impact on my emotions and how I'm feeling towards myself. I feel less capable. I get angry with myself. I feel, like I said, if my anxiety's up and I'm feeling a little edgy, I might take something somebody says differently than what I would take it otherwise. So it is absolutely important to nourish your body. And you can start small. You can start with one meal a day where you just go absolutely clean. You have a salad and it's full of greens and full of colorful vegetables and a very light dressing, or a healthier snack, or just, kicking out the soda once a day. There's little things that you can do there to start the process. And as you start to feel better for getting rid of the yucky stuff, you will find that as you get rid of more yucky stuff and add more good stuff, you will start to feel better all the way around. You will think more clearly. I believe you will naturally feel more upbeat and more accomplished and more capable. And that's super important to your self-worth and your self-confidence. Take yourself out on a date. There's been a lot of talk. I love this one. There's been a lot of talk lately about Miley Cyrus's new song. And regardless of what her intent was when she wrote it, as far as whether or not she was taking a dig at an ex or whatever the case may be, the truth of the matter is that the message of the song is actually really good. Good morning, Chanel. It's actually a really, really good message. I reached a point in a relationship that I was in where that individual never wanted to go or do the things I wanted to go and do. And I was starting to become more positive and starting to become a little braver and more willing to try new things and do different things. And I reached a point where I was tired of waiting around for him to do it with me or want to do it with me. And I just started going and doing these things on my own. And this was kind of a turning point for me because, and you know what? I had been alone most of my life. I had been kind of a loner, so I was used to doing things alone. But this was a turning point where I stopped worrying about whether or not people were going to give me odd looks or whatever if I was by myself. And I encounter a lot of people in my circle and just outside of my circle who feel weird about going out to eat by themselves or going to a movie by themselves. But when you reach a point where you want to do these things and you're tired of waiting around for somebody else to come along with you, you just do them. And there's nothing wrong with taking yourself out on a date. So again, like I said, the Miley Cyrus song, yes, you can buy yourself flowers. You can talk to yourself for hours. I heartily recommend, especially if you find that you're having trouble finding a good relationship that you feel is solid, that you feel you can sustain, friendship or otherwise, spend some time with yourself, because if we don't love ourselves, if we cannot find, yes, it is amazingly powerful, Chanel. If we cannot find anything about ourselves to love, if we cannot stand being alone with ourselves, we're going to struggle in every relationship we have. And my relationship with my boyfriend is a testament of that. And I tell him all the time, had anything transpired between us sooner or earlier, I was not ready, and I would have gone into complete self-destruct mode because I didn't like myself. I was used to being alone, but not in the sense that I'm talking about here, where you just truly enjoy your time and your space with yourself in a place that feels safe and that allows you to be you. I used to just die laughing when I started going out to eat on a regular basis by myself, and I'd walk into a restaurant and the hostess or the waitress would look at me, or the server would look at me and go, and she'd say, "How many?" And I'd say, "1." And she'd go, "Just you?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, is that okay?" Because I stopped worrying about what people thought, and I stopped taking it personally when people would make comments like that. So it is definitely worthwhile. If you want flowers, if you want fresh flowers, go get them. You don't have to wait around on somebody else to buy them for you. If you want a pedicure, and you like that space and you like that massage chair like I do, then go do it. You don't have to wait for somebody else to go with you. You want to see a movie, can't find anybody else that wants to go? March your fanny in there and sit down and watch that movie by yourself. You might be surprised at how empowering it is when you get past worrying about what everybody else is thinking. Okay, so take yourself on a date. That's where I was going with that. Gratitude and forgiveness. Gratitude comes into play a lot, especially when it comes to anxiety and depression, and the way we look at ourselves in the mirror. There's a lot of us, especially after we have a child, we develop stretch marks, we go through menopause, we have a menopause belly, and I talk about menopause quite a bit because I'm way past there, or in there, depends on who you talk to. There is a place where you have to give yourself grace. What you see when you look in the mirror is not necessarily what everybody else sees. Be proud of your body for what it's accomplished. If you've had a child, and so that means you're not quite as tight as you used to be, that's something to be proud of your body for. You have to give yourself grace and forgiveness. And what that means is, okay, so maybe you screwed a few things up. You cannot go back and change them now. So what can you learn from them that allows you to move forward? Constantly going backwards and ruminating on what you've done wrong can sometimes propel growth, but not if you're stuck there. If you're using it to go, okay, how can I not do that again in the future? Then it's a growth. But if you're constantly going back there and beating yourself up for something you've done wrong in the past, that is often at the very, very core of our anxiety and depression. When we give ourselves grace and we recognize that whatever it was, it was either stupid and that's it. And we were younger and people do stupid things when they're younger, or it was something that we did with the best information we had at the time, right? And it may not have been, in our perception, the right decision, but we did the best we could at the time. So we have to stop beating ourselves up for what we've done or not done and start looking at what we can do better going forward. So give yourself grace. If you are a believer in God, the universe, whatever, and you believe that forgiveness is coming to you from those directions, you also have to give it to yourself. And this includes finding forgiveness for others that have hurt you, because you're not forgiving them for them. You're forgiving them for you, so that you can close that off and let that go and move forward. Gratitude, the more that you can find good about each and every day, the more you can find good about yourself. Affirmations, journaling, writing down 5 things you are grateful for every day, doing the gratitude box that I started right before the first of the year. I've talked about this before, where you find one thing each day to put in this box so that you can look at the end of the year. The more you find to be grateful for, the less time you have to find things to feel ugly about. So give yourself grace, give yourself forgiveness, and just stop beating yourself up. I know it's easier said than done. I know it is. But each time you start to feel like you want to beat yourself up about something, try to redirect that thought into something more positive. Find something positive in that happened that you learned, or something positive to focus on that can redirect your thoughts. Make your body happy. So this is where the exercise component comes in, but not just exercise. If you enjoy a hot bath, go take a hot bath. Make time for it. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't have to be Valentine's Day. It doesn't have to be your birthday. It can be Saturday afternoon when you happen to have the house to yourself. Spa activities. We talked about the pedicure. Do something that makes your body feel good. If that means getting a massage, if that means just for me, a lot of times, mental and physical nourishment is just having the opportunity to rattle around the house by myself on my own time frame instead of somebody else's. But do things to make your body happy. Yoga, walking, gardening, whatever that looks like for you. Get some physical activity, because that is just amazing, and it will go a long way towards lifting your mood, lifting your energy levels, and that automatically rolls into more positive thinking. Express yourself. If you have a hobby that you love, for example, I love the line dance. Part of it's exercise, but I absolutely love the line dance. When I started jazzercise was to replace line dancing when we couldn't do it. Now, jazzercise has formed its own little unique niche in my world. Speaking of jazzercise, huge birthday shout out to my 5:45 a.m. instructor, May. Happy birthday, May. But if you have something that you love to do that expresses you, that allows you to be completely you, if it's writing poetry, if it's writing a book, if it's painting, if it's creating music or listening to music or dancing to music, if it's gardening, anything like that, something that makes you feel alive, do more of that. There are so many of us that know what makes us feel alive, and we don't make time for it because we're too busy doing for everybody else. And we think it's selfish if we make time for that activity. Make time for that activity, even if it's 1 hour a week, so that you have something to look forward, something you feel that you're giving yourself that you can truly enjoy and use to express yourself. Number 6, almost done here. Write a letter to yourself. Write a letter to yourself about the good things about you. We're not beating ourselves up here. We're not ruminating here. We are writing a letter to ourselves about what makes us happy, what our goals are, what our dreams are, what makes us feel alive, what poem we wrote or gardening we did or painting we made that made us feel better. And you can even actually drop that in the mail and send it to yourself. And then, you know, a few days later, here it comes back again if you want to. And, you know, who knows, maybe it shows up when you're having a low moment where you're not feeling real good. And something like that can do a lot. But writing that letter to yourself puts all that happiness and gratitude and dreams and goals down on paper. Whatever you do with it, you are helping to bring it to life and manifest it by writing it down. And then, like I said, you can put it away in a place you'll find it later, or drop it in the mail and send it to yourself so that maybe it shows back up at just the time you need it. And finally, the positive self-talk and feel-good vibes. Y'all, I have said this before in reference to discussions about depression and anxiety. We are our own worst critics. We look in the mirror and we see something completely different most of the time than what others see. We are picking apart things that nobody else even notices when that we're out there in the general public. And we must, thank you, Miss Carla. We must not speak to ourselves in a way that we wouldn't speak to someone we love. If you would not tell someone you love, your child, your significant other, your sister, your brother, that they're ugly, then you should not stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself that you're ugly. And every time I talk about this, I get a little teary. So if my voice shakes a little, I apologize. But I have encountered so many ladies, especially men too. So this is not just a problem with the women, just to be clear. This is an issue for men as well. They are just quieter about it. Hey, Miss Ann, and it's not something we see as often. If you would not tell your sister, your brother, even jokingly, joking aside, rather, if you would not tell somebody close to you that they were ugly, do not tell yourself that in the mirror. Do not. This is where it starts. We have to be able to look in the mirror and be okay with what we see. And that is really difficult, but write an affirmation on your mirror. I do it all the time with dry erase markers. Sometimes Eric leaves me messages on the bathroom mirror. Sometimes I write affirmations on the bathroom mirror. Write an affirmation on the bathroom mirror that you can see every day. Put a picture of something that makes you feel a certain way, that gives you joy, that fills you with happiness. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. Do not speak to yourself in a way that you would not speak to somebody that you love. It's okay to say, hey, you're maybe not making a good decision here. Try this. It is not okay to say, you made a terrible decision and you don't deserve anything because you made this terrible decision. Do not speak to yourself that way. In the mirror, in your brain, anywhere. Please, 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 please make it a habit to start being kinder to yourself, especially when you're looking in the mirror. You're getting dressed to go somewhere, you're in front of a camera, whatever. Try not to pick apart. For years, it's so funny to me. For years, every photo I saw of myself, I made a face at. And I'm not always real good about it right now, but I have gotten much better at looking at photos that people take of me and going, yeah, okay, cool. Instead of, oh, there's a fat roll, and oh, there's this. And trust me, I still have my moments. But look at your smile. Look at your face. Look at whether or not you're showing joy or happiness. Less focus on what else you think everybody else is looking at, and more focus on what the feeling was in that photo, or what the feeling is when you're looking in the mirror. And just, like I said, the most important piece of advice that I could give anyone, including myself, is do not speak to yourself in a way that you would not speak to somebody close to you, in the way that you would not speak to somebody else. Okay? So self-love for beginners, if you want that link to the Project Love blog, I'm more than happy to send it to you. Send me a message. A little bit of information from the Berkeley Wellbeing Institute. I'm happy to send that to you too. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself. It is not selfish to set a few boundaries and know when something is taking away from your joy and happiness, and to just kind of find your own space to live and be yourself in, so that you can start to build that confidence and that feeling of you're okay. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share. Again, if you have a topic you'd like to see me cover in a future Wellness Wednesday, please send me a message, drop a comment. And I hope you all have a fabulous day. Don't eat too much of that Valentine's Day candy, whether it's 50% off or yesterday's gift. And I will talk to you next Wednesday. Have a fabulous day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.